I was having a conversation with a friend about Hong Kong and about Portland, and something was brought up that was kind of interesting. In Hong Kong, they're waving American flags, they are singing the American national anthem. I'm not going to act like it's everyone in Hong Kong doing this, but there are many people waving the American flag. There's more than just this one photo. I have only seen one video of them singing the U.S. national anthem. In this story, it says, Crenshaw contrasts Hong Kong and Portland anti-fascists. One waves the U.S. flag, the other burns them. In this conversation, my friend was saying that it's kind of like the opposite, right? In Hong Kong, they're waving American flags, and here they're waving communist flags. And I said, no. It's not opposite at all. It's actually a mirror image. Think about it. The Communist Party of China, massing their troops, beating the crap out of protesters, waving the American flag. It's literally the same thing. It's not opposite at all. Now, you could say in terms of the government, it's an opposite. But the point I'm making is, in Portland, you had, I've seen only a couple photos of communist flags. I have seen many people with communist masks at events like this. So again, I don't want to act like literally everyone on the Antifa side is a communist, but they tend to be. They're waving communist flags, some of them. And they're beating people who are waving American flags. Now, the people with American flags are fighting back, just like we're seeing in Hong Kong. What we really see from this moment is exactly why you don't allow far-left extremists to gain power and why they must be called out. Let me tell you this. Everyone agrees the far right is bad. So at what point can we have a conversation now about the far left? You're allowed to burn a flag. I completely agree with it. While I personally take issue with desecrating the flag, it's burning it is actually this like amazing symbol of the freedom represented by that flag. It's like the most powerful symbol, in fact, that you can destroy it as an expression of freedom. Kind of amazing. The other point, like the other issue is waving the communist flag. We see these people who are far left. We see the ones who are communists and socialists. And we can look to Hong Kong and see exactly what they do when they get power. It's the same thing. Fortunately, they're a small fringe faction when they go around bashing skulls and beating random people, which they do, which they absolutely do. This man here in this photo, he had nothing to do with any of these protests. According to multiple people reporting, this was just a guy and his significant other minding their own business when Antifa, he's like a middle-aged guy, they knocked him out and pepper sprayed him. Had nothing to do with the protest. Sound familiar? Yes. What do you think happens when these people gain power? Look at Hong Kong. That's what you'll see. You will see them amass all of their power to suppress those calling for democracy. Let's read the story. But before we dive in, make sure you go to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. Believe it or not, this is my full-time job. The best thing you can do actually is just share this video. I talk often about deranking, that YouTube is propping up CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the big corporate players. And I think it's a good thing to highlight. But I also want to highlight that people are in a bubble. Many people are in echo chambers, and this predominantly affects the left. That's going to be my bigger story for the 4 p.m. slot. But it's true. There's data to show that the left just consumes left-wing sources, and they're convinced everything else is fake. Well, then you live in a vacuum, okay? Because it's not. Not everything else is fake. And moderates and conservatives actually have a balance a bit between the left and the right. So anyway, that's a better reason for sharing a video, to break bubbles, break vacuums. But let's read the news. If you hate me, just don't share it. I don't know why you're watching, but we'll read. This is actually from the Daily Caller News Foundation, I suppose. They say, Dan Crenshaw tweeted, in Hong Kong, anti-fascists wave American flags, demand freedom, and actually fight fascists. In Portland, anti-fascists burn American flags, demand violence in the name of socialism. Portland is a sad showing of where we are today all around. Also, yes, obviously, buy Greenland. That's hilarious. And just an aside on the Greenland thing, isn't it so weird how the response to Trump saying we should buy Greenland is like ridicule and mockery, as if the man's a clown? Look, if you want to criticize him for the silly tweets he puts out about being a clown, Trump says a lot of bombastic things. But him entertaining the possibility of acquiring more land for our country is not absurd at all. Trump didn't say invade. No, he said, can we buy it? There's 56,000 people there. Seems like a rational question. But let's not get into that. Let's read about Antifa. They say, Crenshaw's tweet came the same day violent protests erupted in Portland, Oregon, between about 1,200 people representing the right wing, Proud Boys, and Antifa, as well as a police presence of roughly 700 officers. It's actually quite impressive that 700 officers were able to control a larger group. They say, it comes a day before 1.7 million pro-democracy demonstrators in Hong Kong took to the streets for a peaceful protest in the rain Sunday for the city's 11th consecutive week of protests against an extradition bill that would allow criminal suspects in Hong Kong to be extradited to China for trial. Demonstrators held American flags and sang the U.S. national anthem during protests in Hong Kong that took place about 1 week ago. And there's a meme going around. It says, "Be the America Hong Kong thinks you are." And you know what? When I saw these protests and I saw them singing, waving the flag, I got a little emotional because at the time, what was trending in the U.S.? Fredo. I get it, man. Rag on Chris Cuomo for going over the top, for sure. He apologized for it. But it's such a... I feel like, people in Hong Kong are waving our flag because we are this ideal of freedom and the ability to challenge your government, express yourself, and say no, reject authoritarianism. And over here, we're sitting, in our chairs going, complain about a cable TV host. And I'm like, man, I feel like we're letting them down. We have to stand tall and be leaders they can look up to. A country with freedom of speech as its first amendment to its constitution, the Bill of Rights, 1A. We can speak and redress of grievances. We can assemble, speak, and challenge the government. Now, of course, over time, the Constitution has been eroded. And they say you need permits, and they say you can't say certain things. And it is, it is what it is. We're fighting. So I can certainly understand why in our political sphere we challenge someone like Chris Cuomo. Just because it's not as big as what's happening in Hong Kong doesn't mean it's not important. Cuomo is very powerful and prominent, and he appeared hypocritical. But I kind of felt like when they turned to us waving our flags, we should have turned to them and given them, waved the flags back and said, we believe in you. Now, of course, there are people saying it's the CIA. And look, man, you're not going to convince me some random dude singing a song and waving a flag is CIA or influence. That's besides the point. They made up their own mind. Let's read on. They say violence between the Proud Boys and Antifa escalated throughout the day. That's actually not true. The Proud Boys showed up and just left. A total of 13 arrests and 6 injuries had been reported so far. President Donald Trump said he is considering designating Antifa a terror organization. You can't. In a Saturday tweet over the conflict in Portland, major consideration is being given to naming Antifa an organization of terror. Well, there is no domestic provision for this, as far as I can tell. They've already been branded as domestic terrorist violence by our federal law enforcement, so there you go. I think at the state level, there are certain, like Illinois, I know for sure has terror charges, because there was this thing that happened where, this is crazy, mind you, before the no NATO protests in Chicago in 2012, the cops pulled over a bunch of left-wing protesters who secretly filmed them. That's illegal in Illinois. It's called felony eavesdropping. It's a two-party consent state. Everyone's got to agree. I think it's an all-party consent state. They published it. All of a sudden, the cops raid their apartment and arrest them all and claimed their beer-making equipment was Molotov-making equipment. They got charged on state-level terror charges. It was nuts. It was crazy. These guys were just like, it was beer-making stuff. Well, it's possible they were planning something, but I really doubt it. Molotov cocktails, especially in the Midwest to the East Coast, are extremely atypical. The West Coast, people are nuts. But in Chicago, nah, these are people who I did mention they attacked the press for sure, but bringing, Molotovs, that seemed, it didn't seem legit. And as someone from Chicago, it really did feel like they were targeting them for having filmed the cops, and the cops couldn't prove who filmed them. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make, outside of all of that, think about what happens when these communist flag waving, American flag burning, black masked individuals condoning violence. What do you think happens when they gain power? You will see the rise of a government like China. Fall in line, no free speech, people get disappeared. But China is faced with a changing world. See, here's the thing. People on the left like to claim that throughout history, the left has always won. In fact, liberalism has always won. Now I'll stop you there. So I know conservatives immediately say, no, liberals don't always win. I'm not saying liberals in the American colloquial sense. I'm saying liberalism in terms of freedom, liberty, self-expression, and the right of the individual. The literal definition of liberalism, which is rooted in the word liberty. So you have classical liberalism, which is a right-wing position, and social liberalism, a left-wing position, but they're both very similar on the libertarian side of things. Both social and classical liberals will likely get along. Classical liberals tend to be less government intrusion, freedom for the individual. Social liberals tend to be government programs can work, but yeah, we agree more freedom for the individual. What the only real distinction is the level of programs from the government. So I guess the point is it's actually kind of conflicting because you'll get a lot of classical liberals saying it's authoritarian to tax people and all that stuff. Social liberalism isn't that the government should force people to do anything. It's that the government can play a role in healthcare, in education, and I fall in that camp, and regulation. Whereas classical liberals disagree, but agree on 99% of everything else. So that's what real liberalism is. It can be left or right. It just means you're on the libertarian spectrum, but you're not, like if you go all the way down to the bottom of the quadrant, you're libertarian. And if you move up a little bit, you're either social or classical liberal. These Antifa people are top left authoritarian communist. And they claim to fight fascism, but there are no fascists to fight. There have been, like Charlottesville, you actually saw people with like the fascist symbol, or however it's pronounced. So yeah. And there have been times Antifa showed up to like overt white supremacy events. Won't deny it. It's true. And they protest peacefully a lot of these things. That's fine. But they use that as a mask for when they go around beating random people and pepper spraying them in Portland. And then what's really funny is there's like a meme where people say there's always an infiltrator. Antifa is convinced the right is dressing up like Antifa and causing violence. And then when the right says it, they go, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. Dude, it's all a conspiracy theory. We have no proof. You're saying there's a conspiracy between the other faction to pretend to be you. None of that matters. What really matters is this is what you see when communists come out and demand their ideology be enforced, be it Hong Kong or here. It's not the opposite. It's the same. The only difference is the amount of communists. In Hong Kong, there are a lot of them, or at least those who would support the Communist Party of China. In the US, there aren't that many, but they do the same thing. Beat people who demand freedom and wave the American flag. I'll leave it there. Stick around. The next segment coming up at 4 p.m., youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel. I'm going to be talking a bit, I think, about, I know I talked about this before, but there's some weird phenomenon happening where the Democratic Party is collapsing. It really is. So it's like Trump took a sledgehammer and just whacked it. His victory over Hillary shattered what the Democratic Party was. Or maybe it was the other way around. Whatever it is that made Trump win is a sign of the decay of the Democrats. Stick around. That will be up at 4 p.m. youtube.com/Timcast. I will see you all there.